Hello, Pahrump. Welcome to Talk TV. I'm your host, Doug Brendel. Today we have a candidate for Justice of the Peace, Louis Decanio. Louis, how you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing real good, Doug. And it's a pleasure to be here, too. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak and to let the people of Pahrump know what I'm all about and stuff, you know.
Well, I was interested in speaking with you just prior to us going on the air. I have to admit that I'm not familiar with what a Justice of the Peace does and what your powers and responsibilities are. So why don't you give us a thumbnail sketch of what exactly Justice of the Peace does?
Well, actually, the Justice of the Peace is a judge like any other judge, but he handles different things. Like the Justice of the Peace, if you get a traffic violation, you see the Justice of the Peace. If you're a mass murderer, the first judge you're going to see is the Justice of the Peace also. Basically, the Justice of the Peace handles misdemeanors, meaning the maximum jail sentence would be 6 months, the maximum fine would be $1,000. In a civil case, he can handle any kind of a civil case under $10,000.
In other words, those cases go before the Justice of the Peace, the ruling is final.
That's correct.
And then the bigger ones, the felonies, the murders, this and that, the Justice of the Peace acts in the grand jury, acts as a grand jury.
Basically, a Justice of the Peace is like a one-person grand jury. When you come before him, he decides whether or not the case brought against you is legitimate or not, if there's actual genuine facts. If it is, and it's a felony, he moves it on to district court. He don't handle that. But he decides whether or not there's actual genuine facts to be have a case brought against you and stuff. So a lot of people don't realize that, like I said, it goes for all the way from a traffic violation to a mass murder. You're going to see the Justice of the Peace first, and he's going to decide what happens to you or where you go from that.
Sounds like a pretty full docket that the Justice of the Peace has at any given time.
Well, the thing is, he does have a workload, but it's very diversified. And the key with the Justice of the Peace, he's got to make sure that he's always fair and impartial. Okay, none of us are perfect, and people do make mistakes. And believe it or not, even the legal system and law enforcement makes mistakes. And that way, the Justice of the Peace, he's got to decipher everything to make sure that everything is done true and correct. And from that point on, he moves things the way that it should be moved and where it should be moved to. But like I says, if he feels that there is enough evidence to move this case on, if it's a misdemeanor, he will handle it. If it's a felony, he moves it on to district court, and then district court takes it from there. So basically, but his decisions are final. He is a judge like any other judge. Now, naturally, his decisions can be reviewed also. But like I said, the major fact with the Justice of the Peace, being that he's got a lot of things to handle, everything from some minor traffic infraction to some serious crimes and stuff, he's got to be able to decipher things. He's got to look at the facts, look at the evidence that's presented to see whether or not it should be moved on and stuff. And basically, I feel that I'm very well qualified to handle that position.
Now, you've never held political office in any way. However, again, as we were discussing before we went on air, you currently have a case that is going to be reviewed by the Nevada State Supreme Court.
Actually, it is being reviewed right now. The case is in front of them right now. They are reviewing the entire case. See, now, even though I'm not a lawyer, I'm a businessman. When somebody asks me, what are you? I'm a businessman. I'm not part of law enforcement. I'm not part of the legal system. But that doesn't mean I don't know the law, and that doesn't mean that I haven't read a law book. I've handled cases in court as my own attorney all my life. Matter of fact, I've handled cases out here in Pahrump. So, there's one case that I didn't agree with the outcome of it, and I appealed it to the Nevada Supreme Court. Now, the Nevada Supreme Court looks at a lot of cases. In most cases, they don't review.
Pass.
My case, they are reviewing the entire case.
So it does have merit.
It does have merit. When the Supreme Court says that we are going to review the entire case, my case has merit, and I did this all on my own. Now, like I said, I don't have a law degree. A lot of people don't realize, well, how could you be a judge if you don't have a law degree? Well, if your town has less than 100,000 people, the justice of the peace does not have to have a law degree, but he has to be competent. And if I do get elected, I'm going to probably have to go to Carson City and go to school to learn certain procedures and stuff to make sure that things are done according to legal procedure. Now, naturally, I'm going to have to raise my right hand and swear an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States and Nevada law. It's that simple. But there's certain procedures that have to be followed in a court. So those procedures I will probably have to learn to make sure that I follow just the way things have been done and the way it needs to be done to make sure that the law is carried out fair and impartial for everyone.
Now, I know you're a good friend of Ray the Flag Man,
Oh,
who's
yeah.
always in court watching things go down, and he says himself he's there to make sure that people don't get railroaded and steamrolled. And I was just wondering, are those along the same lines of the motivations for you getting involved in this? You just want to make sure that justice is done and
Well, you see,
somebody looks out for the little guy.
I've lived in this town for 9 years. And matter of fact, I met Ray right when I moved into town. And me and him have been very good friends ever since then. And Ray is probably the most honorable man I've ever met. And he monitors these courts and stuff. And a lot of times I'll go in there with him and I'll sit there and I'll monitor some of the court cases. I want to see how things are done. Now, being that I'm a candidate for a judicial office, I can't comment on other cases. But let's just say that with my business background and my legal experience and my managerial experience, I might do things a little bit different. I believe in equal justice for all people. I believe that things should be handled in a timely manner. A lot of times when a case is dragged out, it hurts the defendant, it hurts his family, it clogs the court system, it costs the taxpayer money. I'm a businessman. If I ran my business like that, I'd have been bankrupt a long time ago. You've got to be efficient, and you got to do things in a timely manner. Now, the flagman monitors all these cases, and what I don't see in there, he'll tell me what's going on. And basically, me and him will talk. And I learn a lot from that. I've learned so much by watching these court cases and from talking to Ray from what he's seen. And like I says, I have handled my own legal issues. I've handled my own legal cases in court. I have studied the law. I have, matter of fact, I've been brought in court where I've handled several Ferretta hearings where the court has actually questioned me to see whether or not I was legally competent to handle cases. And I've passed Ferretta hearings. I've actually done my own motion hearings. I've handled my own cases in court. And I've done this without lawyers and stuff. I've owned property. I've owned property and businesses back in Chicago. I've owned property in Las Vegas, in St. George, Utah, and in Pahrump. I've never used a lawyer. I've always said, I can read the book. I can research the laws. I can do my own speaking. I'm not afraid to speak up. Matter of fact, I've been in this town 9 years. I've been at numerous commissioner meetings, numerous town board meetings. I speak up when I see things not done right, and I'll offer my opinion and my business knowledge on how to do things properly for the good of our entire community. Now, at no time in all the time I've ever been here have I ever been paid for anything, nor will I ever accept a penny from anybody. When I speak at these meetings or I try to help somebody in this town, I don't want nothing. I don't. Now, as far as my campaign for Justice of the Peace, I will not take no donations from anybody.
Really?
I pay my own way, I do my own work, and I make my own decisions. So when I'm the Justice of the Peace, whatever decision I have to make, believe me, I'm going to review it to make sure that it's the fair and just decision. See, a good justice of the peace must be fair and impartial. And right now in the court system, when you go into court, you have lawyers in there and you have law enforcement. Well, I'm not part of either of those organizations, even though I'm very well aware of who they are, their jobs, and their the laws they have to abide by and stuff. And I've dealt with them on numerous occasions. Back in Chicago, I own businesses with food and liquor licenses. Believe me, I've dealt with the law enforcement, the legal system, the bureaucracy. I've dealt with everybody. And I've always done this on my own. So, I mean, I've got a lot of what you call hands-on experience. You know, even though I don't have a law degree, I've got experience that could never be measured with a degree.
So instead of a lot of flash, pomp, and circumstance, you just want to bring a nice common sense approach to the office of the Justice of the Peace.
Well, you see, here's the way I explain it. It's like if you have two cats. Two cats are 5 years old. One cat was raised in a home, the other cat was raised out in the wild, and you bring them together. They look the same, but one cat, due to his experience, his life's experience, he's so much more knowledgeable than the cat that was raised, in the home. And that's the way I am. See, I've worked hard all my life. Believe me, when I grew up in Chicago, my parents were hardworking people with values, and they taught them values. My father always told me, you treat everybody good, everybody. He said, but you always stand up for yourself. And my mother's attitude was, you don't have to be wealthy to be clean and respectable. And believe me, where I grew up in Chicago was not exactly a tourist destination, okay?
South Side, did you say?
No, I grew up on the west side.
Oh, okay.
But here's the thing. I've never been driven to school in my life from day one. And in Chicago, it didn't matter if it was pouring rain, if it was 2 feet of snow, you got to school. Now, I went to a little Catholic grade school that I had to probably walk about 6 blocks to get to. And we had like maybe 200 kids. Well, right down the alley from us was a Chicago public school that had maybe 2,000 kids that all came from the government housing projects. And I sort of, from the first day of school, I was learning survival techniques. Let me put it like that. Yeah. So, I mean, but you see, when you're a kid, you just assume that everybody's growing up like that. But, it taught me things that could never be learned in a book. I've learned how to deal with everybody. I've got friends from every walk of life, okay? And, I wouldn't change the way I grew up for anything. It's like that was a degree that I learned that can't be duplicated. You can't teach somebody the stuff that I've learned in a book. You can't put that in a book. Right. These are all what I call... What's
right is right. What's wrong is wrong.
That's correct.
You get to know that deep down.
And and I'll tell you what...
Nobody can talk you out of that.
No, and that's another thing. I've never been nobody's puppet in my entire life. When I don't like something or I think something's wrong, I speak up. And I've stood up to a lot of people that maybe other people might be a little leery about standing up to, but when I see something wrong, and I've helped other people out, that's how I was raised. Like I said, my father told me to treat everybody good, and that was his philosophy, but you always stand up for yourself.
Now, one thing about being the Justice of the Peace, do you have to lean on knowledge of precedent and things like that? In other words, something comes before you and you feel like this is right, this is wrong, I'm going to rule this way, but if there's been a precedent, do you have to follow that?
Well, you don't have to follow it, but you could use that as part of a basis for your decision. Now, I look at those precedents as snowflakes. There are no two snowflakes alike. So when something was ruled on someplace else because of something that was similar, it may be similar, but it's not the same. So you take that into account. They call that case law. You take it into account, but you still have to make what I call a fair and just decision. And I've been making decisions all my life. A lot of people don't realize this, but when I was in business back in Chicago, I had food and liquor licenses. When you deal with people that are drinking alcohol, and sometimes they get out of line and stuff, I don't have time to call for backup or the police or anything. I've got to solve that situation immediately. And you've got to be fair. And believe it or not, most of the time, after you settle the whole thing and you solve the problem, the fact that you solved it in what I call a legitimate, peaceful way, those people became my best customers because I treated them with respect, you know. And like I said, that's stuff that can't be duplicated in a book. You can't learn that stuff in a book. And I'm going to use my business knowledge, my experience with dealing with people, my legal knowledge, and I'm going to put that all together, and I'm going to bring what I call a new breed of justice to Pahrump. It's going to be fair, honest, and independent for everybody.
All right. Hold that thought.
Sure.
On that note, we're going to take a quick break, and we will be back right after this. And we are back, and we are with Louis Decanio, candidate for Pahrump Justices of the Peace. Louis, how about wrapping it up here, telling us why you're the best candidate?
Well, here's the thing. I've got a lot of business experience. I've got managerial experience. I've got legal experience. But I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not a part of law enforcement. But I have dealt with all these organizations. I have dealt with people all my life. I have made business decisions. I have made legal decisions. I have solved problems. I'm an Army veteran. I was a military policeman down at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri in the stockade. I was a prison guard. And the only difference between me and the prisoners was I had what they called the MP Brizard. I didn't have tasers or weapons, but I had to deal with people. My life's experience dealing with all these people and making decisions, and a lot of times a one-on-one situation, that has taught me how to deal with people. I've got legal experience where I've handled my own legal cases. And like I said before, I've got a case right now that's on appeal to the Nevada Supreme Court that they're reviewing. I have dealt with people all my life. My business decisions have all been right, because if they weren't right, I'd be bankrupt. As a businessman, things have got to be done right, and basically that's the way I'm going to run that court. I'm going to streamline the court system, and I'm going to make the laws and justice equal for all people. And I'm going to be fair and impartial, and I will do the best job for the people of Pahrump.
All right. Best of luck to you, Louis. Thank you for stopping in today. That's it for us today, and we hope to see you back here next time on Talk TV.